Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people's story. I never thought buying my first house would lead to police involvement, but here we are. I've always been a pretty low-key person who avoids confrontation when possible. My wife says I'm too nice sometimes, and after what happened, I'm inclined to agree with her. This is the story of how my neighbor went from slightly odd to completely unhinged in the span of a few weeks, culminating in what my friends now call the Great Key Showdown of 2023. The beginning. My wife and I had been renting apartments for nearly a decade before we finally saved enough for a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet subdivision. Nothing fancy, just a nice starter home with a small yard that we could call our own. We were ecstatic when our offer was accepted, and we closed on the house about 6 months ago. The previous owners were an elderly couple who had lived there for over 30 years. They were moving to Florida to be closer to their grandkids, and during the closing process, they couldn't stop telling us stories about the neighborhood and how wonderful it was. They specifically mentioned that everyone was friendly and looked out for each other. "You'll love it here," the previous owner told us as she handed over the keys. Our neighbor Diana across the street brought us cookies every Christmas for 30 years. We were excited to be part of such a tight-knit community. The first couple of months were uneventful as we settled in, painted a few rooms, and started making the place our own. We met a few neighbors who seemed nice enough, the young couple next door with a new baby, the retired teacher at the end of the street who walked his golden retriever twice a day, and a few others who waved when we drove by. But we hadn't met the infamous Diana yet. According to neighborhood gossip, which we later learned from our next-door neighbor, Diana had changed over the past year. Her husband had passed away, and she'd become increasingly peculiar. The first encounter. Our first interaction with Diana happened about 3 months after we moved in. I was mowing the lawn when a silver-haired woman in her mid-60s approached me from across the street. She was wearing a floral dress and had the brightest red lipstick I'd ever seen. I turned off the mower, expecting the standard welcome to the neighborhood chat. "Hello there," she said with a tight smile. "I'm Diana from across the street. I've been watching you two move in." Something about the way she said watching made me uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. "Nice to meet you, Diana. I know who you are," she interrupted. "The Johnsons told me they were selling to a nice young couple. I've been keeping an eye on the place for them." "That's thoughtful," I replied, not quite sure what to say. "We're really enjoying the house so far." Diana's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, well, the Johnsons and I were very close. I had a spare key to check on things when they were away." Ah, I thought. This was probably leading to her returning the key. But instead of pulling out a key, she just stared at me expectantly. "Do you still have that key?" I asked, trying to be polite. "Of course I do," she said, as if it were obvious. "I've had it for 30 years. I take my neighborhood watch responsibilities very seriously." I shifted uncomfortably. "That's nice of you, but we've changed the locks since moving in, for security purposes." Her expression darkened almost imperceptibly. "Oh, well, you should give me a key to the new locks then, in case of emergencies." I wasn't sure if I'd heard her correctly. "A key to our house?" "Yes," she said firmly. "The Johnsons always made sure I had access. It's the sensible thing to do." "I appreciate the offer to help," I said carefully, "but we're pretty private people. I don't think we'll be needing that, but thank you." Diana's face tightened. "I see. Well, you're new here. You'll learn that this is how things work in our neighborhood. We look out for each other." With that cryptic statement, she turned and walked back across the street. I stood there for a moment, puzzled by the interaction, before returning to my lawn mowing. When I told my wife about it later, we had a good laugh. "Can you imagine?" my wife said. "Just demanding someone's house key like that? Who does that?" We didn't think much more about it. Just a quirky neighbor with boundary issues. No big deal. Escalation. For the next few weeks, Diana would wave at us from across the street, but she didn't approach again. I almost forgot about our weird interaction until one day when I came home from work to find a small gift basket on our porch with a card from Diana. The basket contained some homemade cookies, a bottle of wine, and, bizarrely, a small empty keyring with a note that said, "For your spare key, neighbors help neighbors." "That's persistent," my wife said when I showed her. The cookies went straight into the trash. Homemade food from someone we barely knew seemed risky, though we did drink the wine. A couple of days later, Diana approached my wife in the driveway as she was unloading groceries. "Did you enjoy the cookies?" Diana asked. "They were lovely, thank you," my wife lied politely. "And did your husband give any thought to my offer? About the key?" My wife, who is much more direct than I am, didn't mince words. We appreciate your concern, Diana, but we're not comfortable giving out keys to our home. According to my wife, Diana's expression changed instantly. The Johnsons understood the importance of community safety. I've lived here for 40 years. I'm not some stranger. It's nothing personal, my wife assured her. We just prefer to keep our keys to ourselves. That's very short-sighted, Diana snapped before walking away. We thought that would be the end of it. We were wrong. The doorbell camera incident. About a week later, our doorbell camera alerted us to movement on our porch at around 2 a.m. When we checked the footage, we were shocked to see Diana trying to use a key on our front door. When it didn't work, she tried another key, then another. What the actual hell? My wife exclaimed as we watched the footage. Is she trying to break in? I was equally disturbed but tried to be rational. Maybe she's confused. She might have early dementia or something. Or maybe she's just entitled and creepy, my wife countered. We need to confront her about this. The next day, I gathered my courage and walked across the street to Diana's house. She answered the door with the same tight smile she always wore. Diana, I said firmly. Our doorbell camera recorded you trying to enter our house last night with several different keys. Can you explain that? She didn't even look embarrassed. Oh, I was just checking if any of my old keys would work. I still have several from when the Johnsons lived there. I was dumbfounded. You can't just try to enter our home in the middle of the night. That's breaking and entering. Diana scoffed. Don't be dramatic. I wasn't breaking in. I've had access to that house for decades. The Johnsons understood the value of having a trustworthy neighbor with a key. The Johnsons don't live there anymore, I said, trying to keep my cool. We do. And we've made it clear we're not giving you a key. Please don't try to enter our home again, or we'll have to involve the police. Her smile disappeared entirely. Are you threatening me? After all I've done for this neighborhood? I'm just setting a boundary, I replied. Please respect it. I walked away feeling like I'd handled it reasonably well. My wife wasn't so sure. We should file a police report, she insisted. What she did was illegal. Let's give her one more chance, I said. She's an older lady who might be having a hard time adjusting to changes. In retrospect, I was being naive. The water main emergency. 3 days later, we came home from dinner to find Diana and a confused-looking plumber in our backyard. What's going on here? I demanded, immediately suspicious. Diana turned to us with a look of righteous indignation. Finally, where have you been? I've been calling you for hours. This was news to me. I checked my phone. No missed calls. What are you doing in our backyard? My wife asked more directly. There's a water main issue, Diana said. I noticed water pooling near your foundation and called my plumber right away, but we couldn't get inside to check your basement. The plumber looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, like I was telling you, I don't see any signs of a water problem out here. I was confused. Diana, how did you get into our fenced backyard? She waved dismissively. The gate latch is simple. That's not important. What's important is that you're being uncooperative during an emergency by not giving me access to your home. The plumber turned to me. Sir, this lady called me saying it was an emergency at her house. When I got here, she brought me to your property instead. I'm not comfortable with this situation. I understand, I told him. You can go. There's no emergency here. After the plumber left, I turned to Diana. You can't just invite people onto our property. There was no emergency. There could have been, she insisted. And if I had a key, I could have let the plumber in to check properly. Diana, my wife said firmly, this has gone far enough. You're trespassing on our property after we've explicitly asked you not to. The next time this happens, we're calling the police. Diana's face turned an alarming shade of red. You ungrateful, disrespectful young people. Do you know how long I've looked after this neighborhood? The Johnsons would be appalled at how you're treating me. She stormed off, surprisingly spry for her age. That's it, my wife said. We're getting a restraining order. I was starting to agree with her, but events took an even more dramatic turn before we could take legal action. The 911 call. The following Saturday morning, I was in the garage organizing some tools when I heard a commotion in my driveway. I stepped out to find Diana standing there with 2 police officers. That's him, Diana was saying dramatically. He's the one who stole my house. I blinked in confusion. I'm sorry, what? One of the officers, a middle-aged man with a weary expression, turned to me. Sir, this woman has called 911 claiming that you're occupying her property illegally. I was so stunned I almost laughed. Officer, this is my house. My wife and I purchased it 6 months ago. I have all the documentation. The second officer, a younger woman, was already looking skeptical of Diana's claims. Ma'am, you told the dispatcher this was your house. It is, Diana insisted. I've had a key to this house for 30 years. I've been responsible for it. They changed the locks to keep me out of my own property. The male officer turned back to me. "Sir, do you have proof of ownership available?" "Absolutely," I said. "Let me get my paperwork." As I turned to go inside, Diana tried to follow me. The female officer gently blocked her path. "Ma'am, please wait here while we sort this out." I went inside, where my wife was already gathering our closing documents, having heard the commotion from the window. "Is she seriously claiming our house is hers?" my wife whispered incredulously. "Apparently having a spare key for 30 years equals ownership in her mind," I replied, still in disbelief. We returned outside with our mortgage documents, deed, closing statements, and even our recent property tax bill. The officers reviewed everything while Diana grew increasingly agitated. "These could be forgeries," she exclaimed. "I've been watching this house for the Johnsons for decades. That makes it partially mine by adverse possession." The female officer looked up from our paperwork. "Ma'am, that's not how adverse possession works, and these documents appear to be in order." "Do you have any documentation supporting your claim to this property?" the male officer asked Diana. "I have keys," she exclaimed, pulling out a jangling key ring with at least a dozen keys on it. "Or I did until they changed the locks to keep me out. The Johnsons always let me in. Ask them." "The Johnsons sold the house to us and moved to Florida," I explained to the officers. "They transferred all ownership to us at closing." The male officer nodded. "These documents confirm that." "Sir, do you want to press charges for the false report?" Diana's face went pale. "Charges? For what? For trying to protect what's mine?" "This isn't your property, ma'am," the female officer said gently but firmly. "The documentation clearly shows it belongs to this couple. Calling 911 with a false claim is a serious offense." I thought about it for a moment. I was angry and frustrated, but also concerned. Diana's behavior seemed to be escalating from entitled to delusional. "I don't want to press charges," I said finally. "But I would like it on record that she's been trying to enter our home without permission and has been asked repeatedly to stop." The officers nodded and took our statements about the previous incidents. They then took Diana aside and spoke to her at length. I couldn't hear everything, but their tone was serious, and I caught phrases like criminal trespass and false reporting. By the time they finished talking to her, Diana looked subdued. The officers returned to us. "We've explained the seriousness of the situation to her," the female officer said. "She seems to understand now, but if there are any further incidents, don't hesitate to call us immediately." "You might also want to consider getting a restraining order," the male officer added quietly. We thanked them, and they escorted Diana back to her house. As they were leaving, several neighbors had come out to watch the drama unfold. Diana's humiliation was complete. The aftermath. For the next week, Diana didn't leave her house while we were outside. We could occasionally see her peeking through her curtains, but she made no attempt to approach us or enter our property. Our next-door neighbor, who had watched the police incident from her porch, filled us in on some background we hadn't known. "Diana's been getting worse since her husband died," she told us. "She used to be the sweet neighbor who brought cookies, but now she's convinced herself she has some kind of authority over the whole street. Last summer, she tried to tell the new people on the corner that they couldn't paint their house blue because it wasn't in keeping with neighborhood standards, as if we have an HOA or something." "Has she claimed ownership of anyone else's house?" my wife asked. "Not that I know of," our neighbor replied. But she did insist that the Johnsons gave her decision-making authority over their property. They were too nice to confront her about it, so they just went along with her little power trips. Letting her have a key, getting her approval for yard changes, that sort of thing. I think they were afraid of upsetting her. This explained a lot. The Johnsons had indulged Diana's need for control, creating a monster in the process. When we didn't play along, she escalated to the point of delusion. I wasn't sure if I should feel angry or sorry for her, maybe a bit of both. Resolution. About 10 days after the police incident, we were surprised to find an envelope in our mailbox with Diana's name on it. Inside was a handwritten letter. "To the new owners of 1452 Maple Street, I owe you an apology for my behavior. My doctor has adjusted my medication, and I am now seeing things more clearly. I have been told I was overstepping boundaries and causing you distress. The Johnsons were dear friends who indulged an old woman's need to feel useful. I took advantage of their kindness and convinced myself I had rights to their property that I never actually had. I will not bother you again. I am moving to assisted living next month, as my family agrees I should not be living alone anymore. Sincerely, Diana Walker." My wife and I were surprised, but relieved. We discussed whether we should go talk to her, but decided to respect her apparent wish for distance. Instead, we sent a brief, kind note acknowledging her apology and wishing her well in her new living situation. For the remaining time Diana lived across the street, she was polite but distant. She would nod or wave if we happened to make eye contact, but never approached us again. True to her word, a moving truck came about a month later and Diana left the neighborhood. We later learned from other neighbors that Diana's adult children had been concerned about her behavior for some time, but it took the police incident to convince her she needed help. In a strange way, our refusal to give in to her demands might have been the catalyst she needed to get proper care. Lessons learned. It's been several months since Diana moved away, and life has been pleasantly uneventful. The new owners of her house are a middle-aged couple who keep to themselves but always wave when they see us. I've reflected a lot on this whole bizarre experience. I realize now that I was too accommodating in the beginning. My reluctance to establish firm boundaries right away might have inadvertently encouraged Diana's escalating behavior. My wife was right. Sometimes being too nice just makes things worse. We've since installed better security cameras and a more secure fence, not because we expect another Diana situation, but because the experience taught us the importance of protecting our home and privacy. The strangest part might be that I actually miss the Diana that the neighbors described from years ago, the one who brought cookies and genuinely cared about her community. I hope she's found peace in her new living situation and is getting the help she needs. As for us, we finally feel like this house is truly our own. No spare keys floating around. No self-appointed neighborhood watch peering in our windows. Just the quiet, private home we saved for years to buy. And if another neighbor ever asks for our house keys, the answer will be a firm and immediate no. Update, 1 year later. It's been a little over a year since the Great Key Showdown, and I thought you all might appreciate an update on how things turned out. A lot has happened, some of it surprisingly positive. First of all, our neighborhood has completely transformed. After Diana moved out, it was like a dark cloud lifted from the street. People who apparently had been keeping to themselves to avoid Diana's scrutiny started emerging from their homes. We had our first neighborhood block party in years last summer and found out we have some really amazing neighbors. Diana used to report us to the city for every little thing, our neighbor 4 houses down told us during the barbecue. Our fence was the wrong height, our kids were too loud, our garbage cans were visible from the street. It was exhausting. Another neighbor chimed in. She once called animal control on my indoor cat because she saw it sitting in the window and decided it looked neglected. It turns out Diana had been neighborhood terrorism on the entire street for years, but no one had been willing to stand up to her firmly. Several neighbors actually thanked us for being the ones who finally triggered her departure, but the biggest surprise came about 3 months ago when I received a call from an unfamiliar number. When I answered, a woman introduced herself as Diana's daughter. "I hope it's okay that I'm calling," she said. "I got your number from the Johnsons. I wanted to personally thank you." I was completely confused. "Thank me? For what?" "For helping my mom finally get the help she needed," she explained. "We'd been trying to convince her she needed assistance for years, but she always refused. After the incident with your house, she finally agreed to be evaluated." I listened in stunned silence as Diana's daughter explained that her mother had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia compounded by untreated anxiety and depression following her husband's death. The combination had fueled her controlling behavior and delusions. "Mom's actually doing much better now," she continued. "The assisted living facility has been wonderful and her medication is working. She's more like her old self again." I was genuinely glad to hear it, but still puzzled by the call. "That's great, but why are you thanking me? I feel like I made things worse for her." Diana's daughter sighed. "You have to understand, Mom had been declining for years, but she was just functional enough to convince everyone she was fine. We couldn't legally force her to get help unless she was a danger to herself or others. When she called the police claiming your house was hers, well, that was the clear evidence we needed. I was processing this when she asked something unexpected. Would you be willing to meet with her? Her therapist thinks it might provide some closure. She's embarrassed about what happened, but she'd like to apologize in person, only if you're comfortable, of course." My immediate reaction was hesitation. After everything that had happened, did I really want to see Diana again? I told her daughter I'd need to think about it and discuss it with my wife. To my surprise, my wife was open to the idea. "If she's really getting help and doing better, it might be good for both of you," she reasoned. "Just not at our house, somewhere neutral." 2 weeks later, we met Diana and her daughter at a small cafe halfway between our home and her assisted living facility. I barely recognized the woman sitting at the corner table. Gone was the imposing, red-lipped neighborhood tyrant. In her place was a small, somewhat frail elderly woman who looked up nervously when we approached. "Hello," Diana said softly, so different from the demanding tone I remembered. "Thank you for coming." We sat down, and after some awkward small talk, Diana's daughter gently encouraged her mother to say what she'd wanted to say. Diana took a deep breath. "I'm deeply sorry for how I behaved. I was not well, but that's no excuse. I convinced myself that having keys to the Johnsons' house meant I had some kind of claim to it. In my confused state, When you changed the locks, I felt like you were taking something that belonged to me." She looked down at her hands. "My doctor says I was compensating for the loss of control I felt after my husband died. I had been the caretaker for our home for 40 years, and then suddenly I was alone. Watching over the neighborhood became my way of feeling useful, but it turned into something unhealthy." I didn't know what to say at first. It was strange seeing this vulnerable side of someone who had caused us so much stress, but there was something genuine in her apology that touched me. "I appreciate your apology," I finally said, "and I'm glad you're getting the help you need." Diana looked relieved. "The Johnsons were too kind to tell me no. They let me overstep for years because they didn't want to upset me. In a way, you did me a favor by standing your ground." Her daughter nodded. "Mom needed someone to set boundaries. You could have pressed charges, but you didn't. That gave us the opening we needed to get her proper care." We ended up talking for almost 2 hours. Diana shared stories about the neighborhood from decades past, and we told her about the recent block party. She seemed genuinely pleased to hear the community was coming together. As we were leaving, Diana handed me a small paper bag. "These are the keys," she said. "All of them. The Johnsons gave me at least 6 over the years as they changed locks. I know they don't work anymore, but it seemed important symbolically to return them." I accepted the bag, oddly moved by the gesture. "Thank you." Life has continued to improve since that meeting. We've become good friends with several neighbors, including the couple who bought Diana's house. They're expecting their first child next month, and the whole street is planning a baby shower. Diana's daughter keeps in touch occasionally. Diana has apparently become something of a star at her assisted living facility, organizing activities and helping new residents adjust. Her doctor adjusted her medication again recently, and she's doing even better. She's even started baking again. Apparently her cookie recipe was legitimately good, and I kind of regret throwing them away now. Oh, and remember that plumber Diana tried to bring into our house? In a weird coincidence, his company ended up being the one we called when we had a legitimate water heater issue last month. He recognized our address immediately and laughed about the whole thing. "That lady was something else," he told me as he worked on our water heater. "I've been a plumber for 20 years, and that was the strangest call I ever had. Glad to hear she's doing better now." As for those keys Diana returned, I didn't just throw them away. My wife and I decided to do something symbolic with them. We bought a small shadow box, arranged the keys artistically inside, and hung it in our entryway with a small plaque that reads, "Our home, our keys." It's a daily reminder to maintain healthy boundaries. The experience with Diana taught us so much, about standing our ground, about mental health, about community, and about forgiveness. Our house truly feels like our home now, made all the stronger by having protected it. And for anyone wondering, no, we still don't give our keys to neighbors. But we did finally get around to hiding an emergency key in a lockbox with a combination that only we and our closest family members know. Some lessons stick with you. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I had a landlord who was pretty absent. I lived in this building, a high-rise, like 20 stories, for 10 plus years. He, despite living next door to me, was absent and cold personally, but cool enough. Rent was good. Our agreement was never bother him about anything unless it's an absolute emergency. Shower head wonky, go buy a new one. Fridge breaks, get it fixed, or dude, just buy a new one. Take it out of what you pay in rent. Lost the receipt. I don't care. I know more or less what a fridge costs, just take it out of rent. Finally, his wife decides she wants more rent, wants to rent the place out as an office, not legal, and wants us out ASAP. I agree to move out a month early and get a month's rent back plus deposit. Complete 180 on their part. The place is ruined, can't give you shit until you fix all this stuff. 2 main things. My cats did scratch up the leather legs of the dining table, and the pull-up bar made 2 dents in the doorframe of the kitchen, which was quite nice hardwood. They come to me with this list of tons of stuff like, "Oh, you hang a photo frame here. This tile is slightly chipped." This is the busiest work time of the year for me, but I'm trying to be cooperative. Sure, I got the table legs re-leathered, spackle the photo frame wall hole. Can't do anything about the door frame, take it out of deposit, patch the tile, like dozens of little everyday wear and tear things like you want me to change the window screens. These are all new screens and in nicer shape than when I moved in. But I did them all. I trusted the guy. Gotta get my money at the end. He should have been giving me 24,000 RMB, 2,500 pounds. He gave me 5. I still need to use the money to fix all that stuff. If you can't accept the 5, I can't give you anything at all. I was super pissed off, but took the 5. Now, people in the building are gossipy. I don't participate, but I did tell this one older lady about my frustration. She told everyone. The wife went from being the star of the mommies group of the building to nobody wanting to talk to her. People shunned the guy too. I originally told them I was planning on moving to another city, but an opportunity came up and I ended up renting a similar unit in the same building, so they thought they could just screw me over and not have to see me, but now they still did. Often. A year later, the office calls me with some question about how to do something with the floor heating. I go, door frame is not fixed, still has dents. I call the guy like, what the hell, man? And he tells me to mind my own business 5 years later. I see the light at my old place is still on at 3 a.m. Huh, that's odd. I go to check, the door is open, and the place is just trashed, ruined. Cabinets broken, stuff on the walls, lazy landlord, and the dents on the kitchen door frame are still there. So the guy never fixed anything, just kept my money. By this time, smartphones were popular, and we had a chat group for the whole building, so about 500 people. I took pictures and posted everything. Apparently, he had also nicked these people's deposit, and there was a huge ruckus when they trashed the place, cops called. All these people chime in with complaints and pictures, people smoking in the hallways, leaving leaky rubbish outside the front door, videos of people using foul language in front of children, dirty footprints. He got fined a lot for one, creating a public disturbance. 2, degrading the quality of the living space. 3, illegally renting a residence as an office, and to top it off, the building management wouldn't grant him permission to have workers in to fix the place, so it sat there empty for like 6 months. The fines were big too. Take approximately 5 months rent from me, lose a year's rent. Suck it, bro. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.